there's magic in your backyard. Go and find it!
We'll head around to all the towns, head away, holiday. South Aussie with Cosi's on sit down. South Aussie with Cosi.
Welcome to another episode of South Aussie with Cosi. My name's Cosi and this travel show is different to all the rest. Most travel shows you watch and you think, nah, damn it, I can't afford that. I'd love to go there, but I can't. Our travel show is all about showing you places that you can afford to go and that are so close to home here in South Australia. We start the show here at Jepps Cross intersection, the busiest intersection in South Australia. 5 roads meet into one. We're heading that way because we're going to go to Port Pirie and then on to Port Augusta. You know, the Great South Australian Road Trip is something that I want to bring back. And the good news for you guys is SA Tourism has designed it so it's even easier for South Australians to do a road trip in their own home state. Check this out. There's actually 5 touring routes that are all mapped out, so all you need to do is basically pick one. They'll show you where all the attractions are, where to stay, plus loads more. I know we've only gone a couple of k's up the road from where we started, but I wanted to stop this road trip already just to point out how awesome is this stretch of road at Port Wakefield Road. Whoever maintains this patch of dirt with its grass and its palm trees, I've driven past here for like 15 years and I've always thought, gosh, I'd love to ring that person and say, well done. This place is beautiful, well presented. Keep pushing north and in just over 200 kilometres you hit an SA town with a population of about 14,000 people. I was thinking, why should I be telling you about Port Pirie when we've got Crows captain, former, Mark Bickley. He is the pride of South Australia, Port Pirie born and bred. Let's find out what he loves about this cool little town.
Well, Port Pirie was a great place for me growing up. I spent the first 18 years of my life there, and the most important thing for me was just the freedom you had. When every school holidays, it was literally out the door at 9 in the morning and say, see your mum, be back at 5 in the afternoon. And we used to go fishing, we used to ride around and catch up with friends. So it was just great freedom as a kid to enjoy. It's the city of friendly people, so you'll always get a smiling face when you go into the township. But like, it's probably the water is the thing that's the attraction there. You know, if it's crabs, it's snapper, it's whatever you can get your reel on, I guess.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mark Bickley. Well said. Now, when you're rolling into Port Pirie for the first time ever, first stop has got to be right here. The Port Pirie Regional Tourism and Arts Centre. This place has all you need to know about where to go, but it also has a massive great white shark in there. Don't believe me? Come and have a look.
Port Pirie has a lot of family-friendly attractions, good for the budget as well. So here at the Tourism and Arts Centre we have a miniature railway, Pirie Rail Express, that operates on the 1st and 3rd Sundays of the month. We also have a model railway that's open the 1st Sunday of the month as well.
I've been with the PRX ever since it started. It's in the vicinity of 20 years.
We have a shark exhibition here. The longest white pointer shark landed in South Australia.
This shark didn't get caught. She drowned up in Port Germain off of the bay there, and she got herself all caught up in the long lines and the anchor ropes of the fishermen's lines up there, and because she's got to keep on the move, she drowned. When she came in, she was 1,500 kilos, 5.5 metres long and 23 years of age.
We've also got museums in town, including the RSL Military Museum, which is a fantastic attraction. In the beach and foreshore areas, plenty of parks and gardens, and of course we have quite a few towns within half an hour to an hour's drive from Port Pirie as well, so you can really make a week's holiday here and have plenty of things to see and do.
I love the Visitor Information Centre, not for the mini train rides, not for the sharks, but for the amount of local produce they sell here as well. You've got chili, citrus and bush taka daka that's made near Port Broughton. Golden North ice cream, made in Laura, locally made ice cream. I love this one too, check this out. A fruit chocks and Golden North ice cream, yum. And have you heard of these before? Look at the range. This is FC Grub soft drink. These guys, made in Gladstone, which is only 20 minutes from here. It's like the ice creams that's made just up the road at Laura. These guys, it's the last family-owned soft drink manufacturer, I think in Australia, and we have them here in South Australia. And I tell you, I've just done what I've said I'd never do. I hate travel shows that always finish by having a sip of a drink and going, we'll catch up with you later. Damn.
South Aussie with Cosi. South Aussie with Cosi.
Great to have your company, folks. I'm super excited to show you the Port Pirie RSL, where they've actually even got their own helicopter.
This building's been here since 1985 and we've occupied it. We've got about 200 members. We decided to open a museum which covers all the wars.
I like the helicopter best.
We were allocated a Huey in 2012. It took nearly 2 years to get it, but we put it in a special built building so that it's protected from the elements. Kids and everybody else can sit inside the helicopter and interact with it.
Whoa, awesome! It feels like a real pilot in there.
They were used in Vietnam. Americans had 11,000 of them in Vietnam. We had 18. The Americans lost 3,000 there and we lost 2. They used to carry troops to battle and away from battle and also pick up our casualties as well. Probably in the next month or so, we will have a M60 machine gun attached to it, so it'll be Vietnam ready, if you like. We have an M60, we have also an SLR. They were the weapons used by Australians in the war. We've also got a wall with the dog tags of all those that were killed in Vietnam, with a computer display showing a photo if we have it, and also explaining how they were killed, when they were killed, and we've also got information on statistics, as in how many people died in particular months through years, and also the slang that we used in Vietnam as well. That's very moving for Vietnam veterans that come here. We have Vietnam vets, some cry, so I'll sit inside the chopper for a while.
See, look up there, the Vietnam War. Look at that, 5.3 million people died.
I was in Vietnam in 1968-69 with 9RA. It was a battalion that was formed in South Australia. It wasn't a very popular war, certainly after a number were killed. It wasn't popular with the public. We had moratoriums demonstrating against us. The worst part about that was they were demonstrating against the troops instead of the government. We were only there to do what we were told to do. Certainly when we came back in the dead of night, had civilian clothes on. We weren't allowed to wear our uniforms. Even when I came back to Port Pirie and decided to march the first Anzac Day, I was told to go back to the back of the line. You're not worthy of marching up here with us. So it even affected Pirie and other towns. We marched as a battalion through Adelaide. We were abused and called child killers, and that sort of thing you don't forget very, very easily. But in about 85 that sort of changed. Didn't make much difference to me, the change. The damage had been done. Yeah. Being shot at the first time is a bit of an eye-opener. I was in a vehicle at the time, and the bullet went between me and the person in the passenger seat. The procedure was to jump out of the vehicle, go to ground and defend yourself. My procedure was slap it back in a second and get the hell out of there, and that's what I did.
Here at the Port Pirie RSL, I've set Hayden, me old mate, a challenge. Show me the 3 most interesting things here. This is number 1.
Okay, number 1, to be admitted into World War I and be classed as medically fit.
Yep.
You had to be 5'6" in 1914.
Yep.
And by July 1915, they'd lowered that to 5'2".
Yep.
Because they needed soldiers, they were running out of soldiers. And then by 1917, 5 foot. So just about anybody was accepted in by 1917.
Isn't that amazing?
It is.
Haydo tells me this is the second most interesting thing in the museum. Mate, what are they?
These are dice that are made out of shrapnel. So when they were bombed, they got the pieces together, knocked them up, and then put the numbers on them so they could gamble on the front line.
Wow.
So these have come from the First World War in Gallipoli and are now in our museum.
Isn't that incredible?
And I think that's fantastic that they've survived that trip.
And coming in at number one of the three most interesting things at the Port Pirie RSL and Museum is, and I bet no one can tell me the answer to this, what do you think those green spikes are? There's one at the top and there's one down the bottom of the helicopter. What do you think they are for? Haydo, hit them.
Okay, they're used for cutting power lines. If the helicopter runs into power lines, they get caught on this rut here, up they go and get cut, same down the bottom.
Isn't that unbelievable?
It is. I wouldn't like to be in it when it did it.
It was going round and around and around and around and around and around.
And do you think you could fly helicopters?
No, not yet.
If you listen to one thing I say all show, take a listen to this. On November the 11th, 1918, when World War I ended, of the 416,809 Australians who had enlisted into the war, there was almost 60,000 that had died, almost 250,000 who were wounded, and all of them were volunteers. And you've got to remember, at that time, Australia's population was only 5 million.
Coming into the museum costs nothing. We do have a donation box on the way out if you would like to do that. The RSL is open 7 days a week. The museum is open from 11 till 4 every day, and the bar is open from 3 o'clock until 7 o'clock every day.
South Aussie with Cosi. South Aussie with Cosi.
Come and try the Pichi Richi Railway! Oh yeah, baby!
Welcome to Quorn. That's the home of the Pichi Richi Railway, one of Australia's great heritage railways. Quorn's a sort of classic edge of the outback town. It's just under 4 hours from Adelaide, 300 k's north, at the beginning of the Flinders Ranges. The town was founded in the 1870s in the great wheat push up into the north of South Australia. And if you look along the railway terrace at Quorn now, you can see there's 4 hotels, one of which is the Transcontinental. Because up until 1938, if you were travelling from the east across to Perth, you came through Quorn. And right up until 1950s, if you were going to Alice Springs, you came through Quorn. So it really was the railway centre of Australia. The history of the railway goes back a long time, back to 1878, when the South Australian government wanted to really lay claim to the Northern Territory and open up the interior. So they started building a railway from Port Augusta, heading up into the Flinders Ranges, and it reached Quorn in 1879. From then until 1956, Quorn was one of the major railway centres of Australia. In fact, it was often called the railway crossroads of Australia.
This is our little darling little coffee pot, and if Pitchi Richi had a favourite daughter, this would be it. She was built in 1905. Basically her role was as a commuter train between Port Augusta, Quorn and Hawker, particularly with sporting days, so cricket club used to hire her out and whatever, so she was sort of the minibus of the area, I suppose you could call her. She got the name the coffee pot because they had 2 44-gallon drums put on the running boards here because she couldn't hold enough water to get all the way out to Hawker. And then one of the larrikins comes up and chalks on it coffee and cocoa or coffee and tea, I can't remember which way around, but anyway, coffee was one of them. And the name stuck. It was all of a sudden it was a coffee pot because that's about as much water as she could boil. She's only a little girl. But she's unique for the fact that she's actually an engine and carriage in one unit. So it's the only place in Australia and certainly the world where you'll find a coffee pot of this design.
The Pichi Richi Railway also has its own museum. Jeremy, I'm loving this. First stop on the museum is here. Where are we?
You're in one of the old South Australian railway carriages dating from about 1912, and this is typical of our Explorer train. We have about 8 of these carriages all restored on the train, and this was the height of luxury in 1912. Pichi Richi Railway is keeping alive the old GAM and the old railways in the back of South Australia. The experience we can offer people travelling through is to ride on an original steam train. In fact, they can virtually ride on the gown of the 1920s, 1930s. The other really significant thing, during the Second World War, thousands of Australian troops passed through Quorn on their way to Darwin to boost the northern defences. And so you can experience what it was like for them travelling. Now, a lot of old steam trains at the end of the steam days in the 1960s, they got stuffed and plintzed and put in the local park. The thing here is that we actually have kept them running, and they run. All of our regular trains are hauled by a genuine steam engine. The Society is a not-for-profit organisation totally run by volunteers, and it has been for the whole 40 years, which really makes it quite exceptional for volunteers to run a railway for 40 years, just astonishing. So we do everything. We fix the track, we fix the bridges, we restore the locomotives, we run the train, we do the catering. The whole thing is done by volunteers. The majority of our members come up from Adelaide. They come up for the weekend or for a week. And let's face it, there's not many places in the world today where you can learn to drive a steam engine. When I was a kid, that was something I wanted to do. I never thought it would actually be possible. But you can come to Quorn, you can work on the Pichi Richi Railway, and even a few years down the track, you can learn to drive it.
Coming up next, I'll show you a car that actually used to be driven on the railway tracks. Hang around, we'll catch you shortly.
South Aussie with Cosi. South Aussie with Cosi.
Welcome back, my friends. We've been road tripping around South Australia and we've just rolled into Quorn. Now, we've seen loads of interesting stuff so far, including this emu going to the toilet. Bet you've never seen that before. Actually, more interesting than that is the Pichi Richi Railway Museum.
Cruising down the highway and I'm on the run, riding on a train in the desert sun. Can't help but write a song when you hear that whistle
And this is an NM class engine. It's the original GAN engine. So we reckon this engine went up to Alice Springs 300 times during its life. So a very historic locomotive. We're absolutely delighted to have been able to restore it. And right now we're in the middle of summer maintenance. So there's the boiler, as you can see. This is the spark arrestor to stop sparks setting fire to the country. And during the summer we give all the locos a good clean over. We offer a variety of experiences. We run primarily during the winter months because that's when the majority of tourists are up here, and also there is a fire hazard with the steam engines during the hot summer months. So starting in March, we run right through to November. We run pretty well every weekend, and during the school holidays we run extra trains.
This is motor inspection car number 126. It's the car that actually runs on the railway tracks. This was introduced in the mid-1930s and it was used for a variety of different purposes. But the one that was most commonly used by was actually the paymaster. He used to go out to all the different track gangs in this little car, and the track gangs would receive their pays passed out from the car. But very unique and very unusual to drive because there's no steering wheel and you just don't know what to do with your hands. But yeah, just magnificent car. We always get lots of funny looks when we take it out on the track too. We do workshop tours through our operating workshops. And all you have to do is book at our railway station, and then we can bring you right through all of our carriages, all of our locomotives, and show you what's going on in our restoration shops, which is always very interesting. Usually a couple of blokes there working on a couple of locomotives, and just fascinating to see the behind the scenes sort of stuff of our railway.
My extras for the day have been Quorn Area School. Out of you, mob, who's the smartest? Really? I don't know, debatable. Hey, what do you love about living in Quorn? It's a pretty cool spot.
Yeah, it's great. There's lovely people. The train's great to go on. There's never a dull moment, really.
Thanks a lot. See ya.
And do you know what? 9,000 people a year come on the Pichi Richi Railway line. That's like almost 10,000 people. And to those people that haven't been on it, what would you say up the end there? What do you reckon about it?
You should go on it because you discover more sights and
stuff and things. Yeah. All right. Well, you guys have fun. What grade are you in? 3 or 4? Are you in?
No, 6 and 7.
Okay. Well, high five for Quorn. Put it up for your kids.
Now on the Pichi Richi, it's like an old train. It's not air conditioned. You can open the window, you can lean out, you can get smoke in your eye, you can smell the steam engine, you can hear the steam engine. It really is a great experience, and I think it's something everybody should do with their children and their grandchildren, is just pass on that experience.
The Pichi Richi Railway experience is simply unbelievable, and it's only 30 k's out of Port Augusta. Very, very close. You can also leave from Port Augusta. Got to do it with the kids, got to do it with the grandkids, or got to do it with yourself. Sounds a little dodgy, but let's roll with it, folks. And best of all, once you've done the train ride, for only $10 an adult or $5 a child, you can come here and do a workshop tour that goes for like an hour or an hour and a half. But even better than that is the fact that all of the money that you spend on going on the Pichi Richi goes into maintaining these machines, because this whole place is run by South Australian volunteers. Okay, that's it, guys. I've got to get this grease off my hands. Seriously, a rag. Listen up, folks. We've got heaps of free holidays to give away. How's 4 nights in any Discovery Holiday Park sound? Well, you can stay in one of their fancy cabins as well. There's 6 Discovery Holiday Parks located all around SA, including Clare, Barmera, Robe, Whyalla and Semaphore. Plus, their newest park is a cracker, Discovery Holiday Park in Tanunda, Barossa Valley. This place is awesome and it's the perfect location for hanging out in the Barossa. If you win, you can choose which one of the parks you'd like to stay at. Only takes 2 seconds to enter. Jump on Facebook right now, why not? Head to the South Aussie with Cosi page and enter. We're going to finish this episode of South Aussie with Cosi out at a special little spot of mine out on the Port Wakefield Road here near Dublin. Of course, we saved old mate the cockroach from a scrapyard in Two Wells. He's a bit of a South Australian icon, so thanks for all your support to make sure that this thing stays here for many, many years to come. So next time you're floating past, give him a little bit of a wave. Don't forget, we've got 10 holidays to give away for free. It all happens on our Facebook page, and you know there's over 150,000 South Australians that are my Facebook friends on our pages. I'm pretty pumped with that, so get on board and come and join us. Thanks for watching the show, and we'll catch you next week.
In South Australia we will go, head away, holiday.
South Aussie with Cosi is proudly brought to you by the South Australian Tourism Commission.
South Aussie with Cosi.
I like possums.